Hi, my name's Rob Baker. I want to thank you for speaking today, and it was a real privilege for me to hear the other testimonies. And it's good to hear voices that you don't hear in the media. And today there is a lot of concentration in the media. I've heard something like 6 corporations control most of the news and newspapers. So it's good to have a forum like this where the voices of the poor are heard. So I want to thank all the other folks who gave their testimonies. I also want to thank my brother Chuck Moore for inviting me. He's a union brother and a brother in Christ, and he's the one who asked me to come and speak today. I write a blog on Facebook called Principles Not Parties. The not is capitalized on Facebook if you want to read some of my posts. And the reason some of the things I want to talk about today are the connections between what's happening on the streets and also what's happening on the national and the global level. I was touched by the youth who spoke about violence earlier today, and there's a connection between the violence that's in our streets and what our government is doing on a national level. When we just recently attacked Iraq, that was a war of mass murder. Yes. Right? Right? That was mass murder. And we talk, you hear talk about, and I'm a child of the suburbs, and praise the Lord, I do have a good job, but we hear talk about thugs on the streets, but who's calling President Bush a thug? And Condoleezza Rice, and Dick Cheney, and even President Obama with his drones, dropping them on civilians. Isn't that the behavior of a thug? And I don't know how many of you know this, but Condoleezza Rice, she was a member of the church in Alabama where 4 girls were bombed. But when Desmond Tutu called her, he asked her to stop the invasion of Iraq, and she said no. Think about that. Her own church was bombed, and she didn't stop the bombing of Iraq, and hundreds of thousands of people are dead. I also want to talk a little bit about economics. A lot of times people, when they talk about the poor, they're thinking of people in welfare, or they're thinking about people who are unemployed or people who are disabled. But one of the things we don't talk about very much in America is all the workers that are poor. 100 million American workers and their families are poor. Poor is the new normal for workers. And it's not just Walmart that's exploiting their workers, but there's literally thousands of companies today that pay the employees who operate their business starvation wages. Half of Walmart's workers are eligible for food stamps and other federal benefits. I personally, I don't know how people live on $7.25 an hour. I don't see how anybody can. And I want to make a connection between that and between slavery. Yeah. Slavery didn't happen because of racism. I mean, racism is part of it, But that's not why it happened. It happened because of greed. It happened because people could steal somebody else's labor and be rich off of it. That's why it happened. We talk about child labor and exploiting children, and you think about the factories in Bangladesh and China where people are treated a little better than slaves. And we also think about the people who serve you food at McDonald's, who work at Target, and the tremendous riches that these companies have, and yet their workers are paid starvation wages. And the reason is greed. The reason's greed. There's no other way to put it. It's not free market capitalism. It's economic oppression. It's theft. It's theft. And one of the reasons why I call my blog Principles Not Parties is because I feel like we all need to work together. And something that inspires me is, although they have left the House of Representatives, is Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul work together on a lot of issues. They work together to end the drug war. They work together to stop these immoral wars of mass murder. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to reach out. And I'm glad the Green Party's here. I'm grateful for the work of Jill Stein and everybody who's in that party. And we need to stop looking to the Democratic or the Republican Party, as a lot of poor white folks do, and think that they're going to do something for them because they're in the pockets of the corporations. They've been bought by campaign contributions, but we all need to come together from many different ideologies to take back our country and to take back our economy, because cartels control our markets. They control the market for labor. $7.25 is not a free market wage. In a free market, you couldn't pay workers starvation wages. Those are the wages of theft. Those are the wages of economic oppression. Those are the wages that cartels pay. Cartels that control markets. And I want to leave you with this thought. It was just in the news this week. I don't know how many of you know this, but Verizon only owns part of Verizon Wireless, the cell phone company. They own 55%. And a British firm called Vodafone, they own the other 45% of Verizon Wireless. And Verizon wants to buy the part of Verizon Wireless they don't own. They're willing to pay $2,900 for each customer that the 45% of the customers that they don't own. That's how much they think those customers are worth, $2,900. And that's because we're every time you pay your cell phone bill, every time you go to the grocery store, when you buy gasoline, when you try to obtain health care, you're being robbed. You're being robbed in your paycheck, and you're being robbed when you go to the store, because we don't have a free market, we don't have a free economy, and people, I know that poor people want to work, and I know that they work a lot harder than me. I know that many people in this country work 2 jobs and have children at home and can't give their children the kind of care they deserve because they're being robbed by their employer. And it's not as bad as slavery was. It doesn't contain it's not as outwardly brutal, but it's still theft, and it's still oppression. And as another speaker said, it's getting worse. And if it came to Kensington and other poor areas first, it's coming to the suburbs soon. And as the 1% gain more political power. There is no limit to corporate greed. And I want to leave you with a couple things that Jesus said that are ignored. One of the things he says is, it's harder for the rich to enter heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Right? Yes. Right? And the love of money is the root of many forms of evil. And because of the greed of our corporations, because and a lot of people like me have been brainwashed into thinking that greed is good, that there's something good about greed. And I'm here to say that it's evil, and it leads to oppression, and it led to slavery. And the totalitarianism, the people are saying we've got soft totalitarianism now. The government's only keeping us under surveillance all the time. And I'm sure that even in this crowd, there's probably a CIA or FBI agent, I'm sure. But soft totalitarianism leads to hard totalitarianism. And people think that it won't happen to them. I'm not doing anything wrong. The government's not going to do it to us. But the government already did it to 110,000 Japanese Americans. Right? Did Congress stop it? Did the courts stop it? No. And the law in America is controlled by the rich. It was written for them. And the courts, the Congress, and President Obama, and Hillary Clinton, and John Kerry, these people are not worthy of your trust. That just like Condoleezza Rice, they're sending the bombs for us. In the media, and today there is a lot of concentration in the media. I've heard something like 6 corporations control most of the news and newspapers. So it's good to have a forum like this where the voices of the poor are heard. So I want to thank all the other folks who gave their testimonies. I also want to thank my brother, Chuck Moore, for inviting me. He's a union brother and a brother in Christ. And he's the one who today are the connections between what's happening on the streets and also what's happening on the national and the global level. I was touched by the youth who spoke about, hi, my name's Rob Baker. I want to thank you for speaking today, and it was a real privilege for me to hear the other testimonies, and it's good to hear voices that you don't hear. They asked me to come and speak today. I write a blog on Facebook called Principles Not Parties. The not is capitalized on Facebook if you want to read some of my posts. And the reason some of the things I want to talk about